We have a lot of new technologies coming online. Artificial intelligence, robotics, all kinds of automation. Jobs are going to go away. And there are a lot of officials and political groups who think that now that basic universal free income is a good idea. It is not. Universal income is an income subsidy. Every subsidy has the effect of increasing the price of the item subsidized by the amount of the subsidy. Subsidy is a zero-sum mechanism, a fraudulent and ineffective manipulation of the public. Any idea based on a subsidy presumes that simply increasing money supply, you increase productivity and the standard of living. But our money supply is fluid in value. When the supply of money goes up, the value of it goes down. Prices go up. It's an economic law of nature. Printing and throwing money into society only reduces the value of money. It does nothing to increase productivity or our standard of living. Insurance and loans also act like subsidies. Just like health insurance caused healthcare costs to skyrocket, just like auto insurance caused auto repairs to skyrocket, just like providing student loans caused tuition costs to skyrocket, universal income will cause prices of everything to skyrocket. Here's how subsidies work. You do not become better off by getting the subsidy. You become worse off if you don't get the subsidy. If you do not receive the subsidy, you will no longer be able to afford food, clothing, other consumer goods because the subsidy drives prices up. It is the unavoidable effect of supply and demand. In a subsidized economy, there is more currency, lower production. Currency is worth less. The price of goods and services goes up. There is no net gain for subsidies, only dependency, public debt, crippling taxation, and perverted social and economic incentives. If universal income is created, or if any subsidy like that is created, in order to get by, in order to survive, you will then have to have the subsidy and a job or other source of income. You cannot introduce a new dynamic into the economy without having the economy react to the new dynamic. With price inflation, you will no longer be able to afford things without the subsidy. You will be dependent on the subsidy. You will be controlled by the people who control the subsidy. And once they start the subsidy, they can never undo that system without disastrous economic, social, and political consequences. It is a permanent experiment in mass welfare. And just like welfare, it cannot be reversed. Welfare, as they created in the 1960s, has been a colossal failure in many ways, yet it cannot be stopped. While having done almost nothing to reduce the rate of poverty, in some communities, welfare caused the incidence of fatherless families to go from 20% to 65% when mothers threw out their children's fathers in order to collect welfare. Obviously, welfare was a social disaster in that way. But politically and economically, it is a trap from which society and government cannot escape once it has been implemented. Universal income will be an unescapable disaster on a much larger scale. People will think that because they are receiving income, they will not have to work. They will not realize that the free money will cause all prices to rise, so people will try to live exclusively on their free income and will rapidly drop into extreme poverty as the overall economy adjusts to the currency infusion, and the money they receive will become worth less and less. Poverty will actually rise as we all become dependent on the subsidy and control that system brings. It is a perfect socio-political nightmare. While you are being made poor by currency inflation, you will also be made dependent and controlled by the centralized bureaucrats, politicians, and enforcers who are in charge of the new economic system. What is left of economic freedom will be destroyed in favor of central control by subsidy, by issuance of universal income from a government authoritarian agency. If you want your subsidy, you will adopt behavior that government prescribes for you. They will have surveillance on you through your cell phone, through your credit cards, your vehicle's GPS, your utility meter at home and at work, your online medical records, your criminal and educational records. They know where you are. They can track you. They know what they're doing. Your subsidy, your universal income will go up or down depending on whether your conduct pleases or displeases government. Kind of like the communist Chinese social scoring system. By seizing control of your income, government seizes control of you and your behavior. Universal income is a step toward government telling you what to do and a step away from you telling government what to do. You will be financially forced to serve and support central authority, even to the point of ratting out friends, neighbors, and family members who may be non-compliant with public policy. People who try to live on this subsidy, this universal income, will not be working or producing any services or goods. So the more people who are made unproductive in this way, the fewer goods and services will be produced, and the more overall our standard of living will fall. There will be fewer products and services to buy even if you can afford them. Prices will not only skyrocket, many stores will close. Without workers, entrepreneurs, investors discovering and serving markets in demand, it will make authoritarian communist countries the way of the world. We will become one of them. People will be dependent on public programs and will lose or never gain any working skills and will be permanently useless for the job market. There will be a drain on the nation's GDP output, and the more universal income is paid out, the more and quicker our nation will drop into inconsequential beggar status internationally. This will quickly take the nation to a third world functional level and a failed state like Venezuela, where there is no one left to pay for all the free stuff the government wants to give out. Industry will try and compensate for the loss in productivity by automation and technologies. The profits from production will no longer go to any workers, but they will simply enrich the few who own and control the machines and technologies. Income disparity will explode. Economic mobility and the opportunity for general population to advance themselves economically will vanish. Those ex-workers, those collectors of universal income will have negative value to society as human beings. The people who take universal income and stop working will be the most expendable human beings ever seen in any society. Their status will be below that of slaves because they will be consuming resources and not even working. When human beings become expendable, you start to see things like genocide, mass atrocities, eugenics, mass sterilization, population culling, things like that. Then, of course, there's the problem of who will pay for the universal income for all those non-workers. The government is already in debt so far, they can't even pay their own debt back. Taxpayers are already paying more taxes they can afford. Rich people are already paying most of the taxes, and every new tax costs jobs and closes businesses. There's simply no source of wealth to provide free income for everyone. If government prints money to pay for a mass program of universal income, that will only accelerate the inflation caused by the mass subsidy. And we would have Zimbabwe-style hyperinflation, and the entire system would collapse, leaving a bunch of unemployed, unskilled human beings to starve to death, riot, and destroy what is then left of civilization. Taxing people to pay them is like borrowing to pay off your loans. You just go deeper in debt, and your currency and economic systems fail at an accelerating pace, and there's social chaos, explosions of social unrest everywhere. Commercial services disappear, and mass unrest and starvation are the only possible outcomes. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Even the most socialist and communist social systems rely on people to produce goods and services to maintain their skills and dignity in order for society to function and in order for humanity to preserve its value. A person who has no skills and produces no goods or services has no economic power, no choices, no options, and therefore has no political power and little human dignity. We have already seen events like genocide, mass sterilizations, induced famines, deliberately undertaken to cull populations, to seize land, to gain some political advantage. If you're not serving society in some way, you will be a target for those programs. You will be a useless eater, a burden on the system, and they know right where to find you if they decide they want to eliminate you. The promise of something for nothing is an age-old political lie. The public loves the idea, they vote for it, and it's never possible to deliver or sustain. This is the basic flaw of democracy. People can vote for things that are impossible, things that simply cannot be done. But politicians do not hesitate to offer and promise such things like universal income. Think about it. Free money for everyone. If something does not make economic sense, it probably will not work. But in the case of universal income, the consequences are catastrophic and permanent. If you think you know how universal income can work, you had better speak up quickly, because if we try this experiment and do not have all the details worked out, if we do not have some bold new idea to make this failed concept work, it will tear our society to shreds.